Because
Sure.
you know that
So,
expression there is going to have
yeah, so yes, yeah, I guess a couple of things. So, yes, I guess like we could say like, right, so saying what's the justification for epistemology. So first off, so we can reject that knowledge is uncertain. Right? Knowledge is fallible, because to assert that knowledge is uncertain is to be certain that knowledge is uncertain. Right? Like to be certain.
I
To
don't
claim
know.
that. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so the way they're using like justification or knowledge is a sense of which is infallible. I mean, a sense of which isn't infallible.
Mhm.
So it's just analytically true that it's like not fallible, because internalists don't talk about like internalism isn't externalism. So the sense of which you're saying you're certain, it's just like an analytic way. It's just like how you're saying like in order to say that.
So analytically like true by definition.
Yeah, so you're saying like you have to be certain that you're uncertain that you know something. Like that doesn't follow either. And I don't have to like subscribe to like JJ or KK thesis. I don't need to have this like secondary, like second order knowledge or justification. Like you understand when I say like I know X, I don't have to know that I know X in order to know X. Same with like I'm justified believing X. I don't have to be justified in me being justified in believing X. I just don't take these like views of these like particular theses in which like you can regress. Right? It's not even common in like epistemology that these things are used.
Well, I mean, the field of epistemology, the secular field of epistemology, is flawed, right? Like the non-God worldview.
No, even most theists who are epistemologists don't take this view of KK or JJ thesis. This is just like something that's actually one of the most controversial views in epistemology. It doesn't even do with like secularism. Even like many people like humor even have like weird obscure views where they believe in like stuff like afterlife and souls. They just don't believe in God. Right? It's not like there's like many just like weird epistemologists who like deny this. This isn't like denied for like any reason about God. It's simply because like the JJ and KK thesis are in themselves problematic. Right? Which is gonna be like one is just like trivially like a regressive issue. That for any item of knowledge there's gonna be some item of knowledge over and above that which ensures knowledge of that of which you have access to. Which obviously is just not true. Like in a mundane sense, because most people who have some knowledge, right, first order knowledge, aren't going to have like this wicked, like this Lockean sense of introspectability in which they can introspect us to that knowledge and generate an item of knowledge further in light of that, like state of knowledge, right? And of course, if that the KK thesis is true, of course, for any item of knowledge, there's going to be a further item of knowledge, and that just leads to an infinite regression, which is actually most for theists, because most theists deny the existence of infinite regressions, right? Whether it be doxastic infinite regressions or eventual infinite regressions. Like the theists, like actually, like surely you believe like the universe is eternal, and you probably want to deny that there's like an infinite chain of events, right? Like in fact, it's almost like seen within like the theist views who are most inclined to denying principles like these, not the secularists.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I'm just kind of thinking. All right. So, all right. So we've got being knowledge, and we're saying that the infinite regression. Yeah, I'm just trying to think about like what's most helpful. Okay. So they did have a thought, but I forgot my thought. Hmm. Okay. So, would you agree like reasoning from axioms or base level assumptions about external verification would not be sound? Because like let's say if your axiom is that you can through your senses you can acquire that which is actual. Like you look out to the world, okay, that's a real apple, that's a real dog, that's a real person. Well, how do you know? Well, your axiom is that your senses interact with that which is actual. But someone else could come along and they could have a base level axiom where they say that we're actually in a big gigantic machine and we're in the matrix and this machine is pumping electronic chemicals to our brain. So you could reasoning you could swap any axiom for any other axiom. Right?
Sorry,
yeah.
No, I mean,
yeah. So basically,
I think there's just a confusion there about what an axiom is. So the way I understand an axiom is just going to be like a constituent that constitutes some framework, right? And this can be like understood in the sense of logics, where like some axioms are like rule of inference maybe took into be axioms, or maybe things like trinity or quantifiers, right? Or like just like the operators contained in the system, right? Same with mathematics, like operators contained in the system, and I don't take it that those are propositions, right? Like what does it mean to say when like plus sign is true, or like the parenthesis sign is true, right? Those are just like I don't take it that axioms. Like of course, colloquially speaking, search up the definition of axiom takes it to be like some type of like a proposition, but I actually don't take that to be true because like I mean, if you appeal to any axiom, like including Euclidean axioms, or any particular axiom of mathematics, of logic, of anything, those aren't actually I don't take the view those are actually like propositional, right? So like, axioms aren't truth apt. They're just like norm, right? Like it's like we define them.
Well, I mean, ought we define them?
Ought we define them? I don't take a normative view about I don't even know what you're asking there. Like I don't take a normative view about making frameworks.
Hello.
Normative view.
So on Hitler's Wikipedia page about his religion, it says that Hitler is a German Christian.
Can we not do this? Can we not interrupt, please?
Yeah, it's just a draw. Yeah, I'm just gonna. Go ahead.
Yeah, like for like what axiom do you take as a proposition? I don't take that there's any actual axiom that is like propositional. Like saying like my perception is reliable. It's just not what I understand to be an axiom. That's just like a claim. If you're saying like I'm presupposing that and not going to present justifiers, that just seems like you're like stipulating it or just unwilling to like give a defense for the view. But like in the sense of which most epistemologists talk about, I know they're not going to be talking about like an external sense of justification or knowledge. And there's like a number of reasons. Like I mean like I'm personally like a direct realist, so I take it like there are ways of like justifying the external world. Right, but that's not even the point because you're making the claim like I don't know. It just kind of seems like you're confused. I don't know what it means to say an axiom is unsound. I don't take it an axiom. Well, first, an axiom, if you understand an axiom as a proposition, there's still going to be confusion there because a proposition is going to be an argument that which, like, of course, doesn't have like sufficient warrant, right? Like the premises are just not understood to be true or taken to be true, right? So then, like, of course, a position, there's just going to be like a conceptual error there when you say like a proposition is unsound, unless you're saying like the argument wasn't made justified, which I mean, okay. Like the epistemic context in which I say like the apple was red. Like I'm not. It doesn't make sense to like go from like the apple was red to like, oh, well, the only way the apple was red is if your perception's reliable. With the argument that your perception's reliable, right? Like that doesn't matter because whatever expression you're making, like a proposition, the apple's red. Presumably you're talking about like perspectively that the apple's red, and that you have like experiential, like the contents of your experience motivates you to the proposition, right? And that might be for reasons like something like phenomenal conservatism or something. I mean, there's like a number of ways in which you might suspect that it's true.
Okay. So by
Like,
proposition, you just mean
reliability. Like when you say like your senses are reliable, what does that mean there?
that one would have access to the actual state of affairs. So like so there's the phenomena and the noumena. The phenomena is like the perceived and the model, and the noumena would be the object in and of itself.
Oh,
so I'm saying
well,
that one would have access.
Realist.
I'm saying one would have access to the noumena. One would have access to the object in and of
It's just more probable that we perceive the external world compared to the skeptical scenarios in which like my faculties are unreliable.
It's more probable.
Mm-hmm.
By what standard?
Like predictive scope. Like if it were the case that my sensory faculties were unreliable, I wouldn't expect any further. Right? There can be like these crazy events that come, or events that are unregulated. But like if it were the case that my sensors were reliable, given the natural patterns prior, I would suspect that I can make like these naturalistic predictions, and for any naturalistic prediction I can make, if it were to come true, it's just going to be evidence that is the case that I'm actually perceiving the external world, right? And for the world in which my perceptions may be unreliable, it's not going to actually. I don't suspect that there's any predictions that will be made, right? Because there's not going to be like any reason to strongly suspect that if my perception was unreliable, that I wouldn't see like these radical inconsistencies in nature, right? I would equally predict both of those, right? So it's just going to be more probable, like just like a basic Bayesian front, that like it's not the case I'm like perceiving the external world. But I'm also like a direct realist, anyways.
Well, I mean, there's like a multitude of things. I mean,
like why I don't understand why believing in God. I take the view that believing in God would actually decrease the probability significantly than in the atheist worldview that you actually know stuff, let alone for certain.
Well, I mean, knowledge is not a probability. Like you either have it,
The
or you don't have
probability,
it.
the probability of the proposition I knows the external world, like I directly perceive the external world, or my faculties aren't like errors. Like the probability of those expressions.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I guess what you're saying is like, okay, there's like a consistency of experience, and because there's this consistent way that the world is operating, it's pretty unlikely that it would operate in this consistent way. Given like I didn't have apprehension of that which is the case. And I mean, we're just arguing from probabilities. It's just okay. Well, first off, it's like we don't really know the standard. Like, what's the standard that determines what's likely and not likely? But then secondly, even if we were to bypass that, just to say that there's a probability, it's like, it's like, well, then
It
could
evidence is that which raises the probability of a proposition.
Evidence is that
For any proposition, if there's evidence in light of the proposition is far more likely, especially when it's strong evidence. Yeah, of course, right. And I'm just saying that there's evidence that we're not in like a skeptical scenario where like my faculties are errored, right? And the way I can generate that evidence is given all evidence is like that which is going to be predicted, like some particular hypothesis, and given that prediction were to like be furnished, that would be like reason given for the actual hypothesis, right? So given that the world in which like I'm having like errored faculties, that wouldn't make any predictions. And for any prediction that comes true, right? Like look, I can literally just turn on my camera and I can predict that given my past, like given in the hypothesis in which we're not in it, like my perception isn't errored, I would predict that if I jumped, gravity would pull me back down to the center of the earth. Right? But if my perception was errored, it's not clear why would be any like more likely that I wouldn't go flying than I would like get pulled back from the earth. Right? Like I can equally, if my faculties are errored, I can equally misperceive. I can equally perceive either scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's just like more evidential. The hypothesis I'm not misperceiving, but that's not even hard to like fuse. Right? I'm just like a direct realist which diffuses that like my faculties are unreliable. But even then, you can know like an infinite amount of stuff, and it's still not be the case that you need like externalist account of knowledge.
Mm-hmm. So you said, okay, I can jump, and since I jump, based on like prior experiences, like I can know that I'll be pulled like back towards the ground. And you also asked like, okay, how's the God worldview? Like, is like I guess like prior experience increase the probability of something being true? And so in the God worldview, yes, we could make the case for that. But in the non-God worldview, like no. So in the non-God worldview, no. Like prior experience would be no grounds by which to say that the future would be like the past, or even some consistency of observation would be no grounds to say that one is observing that which is actual. I mean, like any percentage of possibility that you could be wrong as well. You could be in that percent. Like so, for example,
okay, well,
like, let's say
that's just to say again that you're not certain. I don't. When you say like for all the past events that an agent perceives isn't going to be like raising the probability for any particular proposition, even if it were the case that were predicted, is not only analytically like false, how evidence is hashed out in a Bayesian like system, but also it seems like I said earlier, actually would suspect that that's actually more so the case for atheism than it is for Christianity. So when you say for Christianity, yes, and for atheism, no. Well, I see the opposite. But I just want to get clear why you would believe that it's not the case for atheism. That if it were the case, you have like a coherent like web of past experiences that allow you to make particular predictions, and those predictions come true. That would actually be evidence. Like that's quite literally what evidence is.
It's a system with a web of predictions.
No, evidence is that which is going to be like some prediction that's going to be generated or furnished. Given some actual like some. Well, I mean, evidence is going to be like in light of some prediction that is furnished that would motivate some particular hypothesis.
All right, in light of some prediction that is furnished that would motivate some hypothesis. In light of some prediction. Oh, I mean, we could predict all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, and that'll be evidence for like a range of things. I don't disagree that there's going to be a range of evidence for like a number of hypotheses.
Okay. All right, so let's think about like ontology and everything. So ontology is a very neglected field in the secular field of philosophy.
Because
If you go
ontology is
to
always semantic. Like if you act like ontology, it's kind of like a waste of time. Like literally, it's just like all semantics. There's like actually no substance behind ontology, as opposed to like any field. But again, like you keep making like these claims of like, oh, it's neglected by the secularists, right? But like every instance in which you said this, it was actually more motivated by the theists, right? Like naming an instance in which you said like KK, like you believe in the KK thesis, and that like in the non-God worldview, of course, people would deny the KK thesis, and I explained to you how it's like more likely that that's deny the KK thesis than the secularists. But like again, I don't understand what like secularism has to do with like neglecting ontology. In fact, it's more the atheists that are going to be like caring for ontology, right? They have like strong suspicion, ontologically speaking, that God doesn't exist.
Okay. All right, so anyway, we can go through go through these things. All right, so I'll just try and walk you through like the proof and everything. Tell me your thoughts. Okay, so premise one, right? Premise one would be that being is not an assumption, right? So ontology is not an assumption. So to kind of explain this,
Can you just write the, can you type out the arguments I checked? I don't have like writing utensils to like remember this.
Remember? Sure. I guess I'll type it out one at a time. But yeah, I'll type it out as I explain it, and then I'll post it there. Kind of one at a time. Let me go pull it up. And I'm not gonna say like, okay, like this is like, perfect argument or anything. Just but I think it works. Might need to be cleaned up a little bit anyway. All right, so I'll post each one as we discuss it. All right. All right. So P1, posted on the side chat, is being is not an assumption, right? Ontology. So to kind of explain this, so being is that which is, like existence in a way. And so there are physical things that exist, like you, me, dogs, cats.
It's just confused.
And then there's non-physical things.
But if all you mean by being is existence, then you say being is not like an assumption, and so like of course like that's not even a proposition. So you can't like predicate being of assumption. I don't even know if that.
Well, proposition you mean like a sentence or?
Look, so well, first there's gonna be the era of which like you're treating like existence as a noun. I don't even know what that means. That's like saying nothingness as a noun, right? Like existence and nothingness presumably aren't nouns. I don't even think that would be like coherent to say.
Well, nothingness like doesn't even exist. Like nothingness has never existed.
You understand the predicate of assumptive, right? When you say something's an assumption, only propositions are assumptions, right? And existence isn't a proposition.
Okay, so then P1 would be true.
Well, yeah, it's gonna be like trivially true in the sense of which like it's a category error. It's like saying a box doesn't contain itself, or there's not such thing as before time, right? Those in the sense of those is that like it can be like true.
Okay, so we agree.
Like,
P1 is
red is not a cat, right?
Yeah, so we agree. P1 is true because to say otherwise would be a category error. Okay, I agree. Okay, so then we can go to P2. All right, so P2 is that being is not void of attributes, or it would be nothing. Okay, so an example of this is like, let's say if you were to hold an apple, or I were to hold an apple, and so then I guess let's say you're to ask me what type of apple do you have, and then I'll have to say, well, it has no height, no width, no depth, no smell, no taste,
This is also
no color.
again, for the same reason as the first premise.
And it's just like you said, it would be category error just or otherwise.
No, to say that existence is not void of attributes is just false.
So existence is void of attributes?
Yeah.
So like being could be a concrete one, or it could be a bunch of discrete particulars, right?
I don't know what any of that means.
So that's from the philosophical problem of the one and the many. And this is like other philosophers have talked about this. Like you can pull up links on the internet that talk about this. Like this isn't just from him. This is from other people way back in the past. Like ancient Greek guys have talked about this. Plato spoke about this.
Being means it's synonymous with existence, right? So
not everyone. Yeah, okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, look, for all predicates, there's no predicate that is instantiative of existence, right? Like, of course, like, is existence red? No. Is existence mighty? No. Is existence hairy? Existence isn't predicative, right? And that's the type of category error that's being made in this argument.
Okay, so you said is existence?
It's just that it's not that being is just not is well, it's not that just being is void of attributes. It's just being isn't attributable. A car could be red. Wet can't be red. You understand the category error when you say wet is red, right? When you say existence is red, do you understand how existence isn't going to be like a variable constant in the sense of like predicate calculus? Because existence isn't like going to be a state. Existence is just like the set of things that exist. I don't even know what that means. Like existence is the state of existing. Yeah, like the state of existence doesn't hold attributes. Like the state of existence isn't red. The state of existence is hairy. For all predicates, it's not the case that the predicates actually quantify over the like variable.
Okay. Yeah, well, this thing isn't really. This thing is so. I might want to look for a different article. Yeah, I agree with you. It'd be wrong for a category to say like being is red and things like that. But I mean, you can do that. So here's an article, and then I'll try to get another one because this one's so.
Look, it's like when an error theorist says that it's false to say X is false, right? They're not going to mean that X is true, right? When I say like killing is wrong, right? And I say that statement is false, that doesn't actually imply that killing is right, right? For the same reason that they're saying that making moral judgments is like metaphysically queer, given that there's an underlying assumption that is in itself false when you make these like judgments, and that's going to be the same sense in which you're making these adjudications cognitively about like existence treated as a noun, because like existence isn't a noun, and it's not the case that existence is predicatable. So maybe in some weird sense would it be true that existence is void of attributes? I'd still say like an expression like that is mistaken, right? Unless you want to say like something like it's analytically true, but I don't even know if that would be a good representation, because nothing of like maybe like I don't know, it's just a very very confused thing. Like in the same sense in which you say there's no moments before time. Yeah, I mean, yeah, sure, that's true, because like before, like moments before are like a temporal notion, and temporal notions are constitutive of time. So of course there's not like instances before time. But I wouldn't say that that proposition is true. Like under like some weak construal my characterizing that in such a way. I wouldn't want to say that. I would just say like there's gonna be a category where we make judgments like these. Like of course like existence is void of attributes.
All right. So yes, I posted I guess an article to the one and the many, but I need to try to find some better sources as well. So this is what it says. It says, perhaps the problem reveals some deeper truths involving metaphysics of material constitution or logical statements involving identity. It says, the puzzle arises as soon as there's an object without clearly demarcated borders. Unger suggested that clouds are paradigms of this phenomenon. So then it says, here's Lewis's presentation of the puzzle. It says, think of a cloud, just one cloud, and around it a clear blue sky. Seen from the ground, the cloud may seem to have a sharp boundary. Not so. The cloud is a swarm of water droplets. At the outside of the cloud, the density of the droplets fall off. Eventually, they are so few and far between that we may hesitate to say that the outlying droplets are still part of the cloud at all. Perhaps one might say
the second link you sent by SCP talks about like mereology, right? And it's talking about like the problem of many in the sense of which we like have this like identity relation to like a composition. I don't know what that has to do with discrete. I don't mean by discrete particulars, the set of discrete particulars. I don't know what discrete means there. I'm just saying like different particulars, and by particular you mean it in the sense of like universal particular, because I'm just like a nominalist, so you wouldn't need to use language like particular. Not like gonna be like a Platonist, right? Unless you are like a Platonist and maybe you have like some defense in light of that. Presumably you're not a Platonist. I don't take it that many theists are Platonists. I don't even know why someone would suspect such a view.
I mean, I would think that. So yeah, there's a lot of things. So when we're talking about today, so essentially this is an ancient philosophical problem. And so the question is, well, what is the true nature of ontology, the true nature of being? So back in the day, you had some Greek philosophers. One guy's like all is water, another guy's like all is fire.
What do you mean by nature there? The nature of ontology?
Well, what is ontology? What is being? Like, what is it? Like, is it mind? Is it not
the
mind?
nature of the study, like the system of ontology, like the actual pedagogy, the field of study itself, or like ontology as in like the set of things that exist, or like the state of existence, the nature of the state of existence.
Yeah, the nature of the state of existence. Or what's the nature of existence?
And by nature there you mean like what?
Like what is it? Like is it a mind? Is it not a mind? Is it one? Is it many?
Wait, no, wait. That's okay. Look, there's like more confusion there. So when you say by nature, wait, I'm not even clear if you gave me like a definition. Like, what was your definition of nature?
I guess what is the case? Like what is?
What is the case? That just seems like existence.
Yeah.
Wait, what is the existence of existence? If you're treating nature as like a synonym for like existence, then I don't know what expression what is the existence of existence means if we could just swap nature, because you said what is the nature of existence? Presumably that's like tantamount to saying like what is the existence of existence? Seems like gibberish. And like the sense of which philosophers use nature, they don't mean existence. Like what's the nature of the apple? They're not talking about if an apple exists. Or like you can quantify the like usually by nature they just mean either like the set of properties analytically or like something like I don't know, something like that.
I mean, like what are the attributes? What are the attributes of existence?
Oh, but look, we've already explained how like there's gonna be a category where we say like the attributes of existence, because existence isn't gonna be attributable. Because existence when treated as a noun, that would like make you to some very, very weird and like metaphysically like form of like a view of Platonism, because existence is itself gonna be a Platonic entity. Like I don't even know what that means.
I mean, I'll say like okay, there's some attributes we can't apply to existence, but then there's some attributes that we would be able to. And
no, I'm saying like for all like it's not there can't be any attribute that exhibits of nature. Like that, I don't even know what that means. Or like what are the attributes of wet? Doesn't make any sense. Right, like there's not going to be attributes because the state of existing. Well, I don't even take the view that the predicate, but you know maybe in some coherent sense for you at least to like make it easy to understand. Like existence there would be a predicate. So of course like predicates aren't predicative of themselves. That doesn't make sense. Like what's the nature of red? Doesn't make any sense. There's not predicates that constitute red, because red is a predicate. Because the way I understand a predicate is something that's like ontologically incomplete. Right, it doesn't exist in itself. When I say a car exists, that's a coherent statement. When I say red exists, that's not a coherent statement.
Car exists. Does red exist? So does red exist? That is coherent.
No, because red's not an object. I don't know what it means to like say red exists, like some predicate exists. Like what does it mean to say wet exists? Or hairy exists?
I mean red does exist. Like even if it's not a consistent. Yeah, I was gonna say yeah, like red does exist even if it's not like a consistent sort of object. Like
I don't know what that means. Are you saying like because when I say something exists, I'm saying it's ontologically like complete. So like insofar as itself, the thing exists. Like I can look at a red. Like I don't know what it means to look at a red. Unless you're saying something weird, maybe that like something like red isn't merely subjective and isn't the way that your senses interpret the like refraction of polarized light off an object into your retina. That like an object actually like light independently exhibits the colors of red. But I don't even think that view is coherent. But I don't even know if I would sign off on that even meaning that red exists. Because when I say something exists, I mean exists like that means that it stands alone. That it's a standalone entity. Like when I say a car can exist, that means a car can be like an entity in reality. When I say red exists, when you say red is an entity that exists insofar as itself, like red exists as an entity in reality, that's just like committing you to Platonism. I'm not Platonist. I don't take it red exists. Like even if no observers existed, that there's actually red. There's not like such thing as red in my view. Red is just like the way we interpret certain like light. Right? What does it mean to say there's an objective color to the apple? Like maybe we can say certain people's faculties are erred just because it doesn't, as an accumulative case, like it's not the case most people observe the apple is red. That doesn't like mind independently the apple's red. Like do you take the view that like wet is mind independent? Like wet exists, like wet is an entity? Like that doesn't make any sense. Wet isn't an entity in my view. It's merely a predicate. A car is an entity. Like when I say an apple is car, that doesn't make any sense either because car isn't a predicate.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like as for wet, it's like a sensation. I'm not sure on that one, but with regards to I would go with more of a Platonist view.
Why Platonism?
Like
you have, Yeah, I said, why would you believe in Platonism? Like, do you have like an argument for the view? Understand how just like inflates your ontology, it has like no explanatory power, and it neither has any predictive power. Like, I don't see any benefit of the view of Platonism. It's just like some really bad, like theoretically repulsive metaphysical commitment, and presumably you subscribe to the view would have to put you in like some like epistemic normative obligation to present like a justifier to believe in something that has no theoretical utility and is metaphysically vicious, right? When it's like inflative to your ontology. And I don't know if you actually have like some reason giving like motivation to like be committed to the view, right? When you say like Platonism is true, like in light of what justification do you have for the belief? Because if you don't really have a justification for the belief, then why do you actually believe in that? It doesn't, like, there's literally no reason to believe in it that I can see. If you just don't have access to the reason, then why do you believe in a view that is like metaphysically vicious and you have no reason to suspect it's true? It's just like nonsense. Like,
Well, I mean, I wouldn't go like.
oh, but you know, it's like almost ubiquitous within like contemporary philosophy that like people are like either nominalists or like agnostic, or like almost no one in contemporary philosophy is actually like Platonist anymore. Like, there's like no good reason to like believe in Platonism.
Yeah, I mean, like I you know, I don't really appeal to consensus or like, okay, what is modern day philosophy and that sort of thing. So with regards to that, you know, I'm not saying okay, I'm a full Platonist or anything. What I yeah,
like obviously it's false. Like we don't really have to go deep on this topic, but it's obviously false that you like don't care for consensus.
you're cutting.
Yeah, like obviously like you do care about consensus. Like I don't think we have to go deep on it, but I take it that's false when you say like you don't care for consensus.
Okay, well that's aside. I mean, aside topic. Okay, so we are looking at what are you looking at? I forgot. You're looking at something. Okay, we're talking about Platonism. Okay, so essentially, yeah, I'm not a Platonist in full. I mean, I think some things he says make sense, and essentially, we're talking about the one in the many. All right.
It means to not be a Platonist in full.
So I'll explain.
Platonism or you don't.
All right, I'll explain the overall view and everything. Okay. So talking about ontology. Ontology is what is the true nature of being, or that which is the case. We're not just talking about the study of being. We're just saying what is being itself. Now, back in the day, there were different like Greek philosophers and stuff, and you know, some of them would hold to that all is a concrete one. So you can imagine it like this, right? So imagine that you have a yellow ball of Play-Doh, a blue, a green, a gray, and then you smush it all together. Okay, now you have to get one brown blob of Play-Doh. And so essentially, that's what like some people were holding. Okay, this is the true nature of being, like the Hindus, right? So they'll hold to that. No, you are me, I'm you. We are the stars, we're the ocean. You are the pen in your
I
hand.
don't really understand these analogies, but I don't really know how to respond as to like what's your motivation for Platonism.
Yeah, I'm explaining to you one of the many.
Do you have like
what you think?
wait just
I mean,
because do you have
why you? Why not just hear me out? I mean, you weren't familiar, right? You weren't familiar with the problem of the one in the many, so I'm explaining it. And you know, so if you just hear me out.
The problem of the one in the many hinges on this metaphysical commitment that I'm not committed to, right? So of course I'm gonna like attack the underlying presupposition prior to like the second stage of the argument, right? The first stage is the fact that Platonism is true, which is necessary to like have this problem like maybe be enticing abductively speaking for the view of like theism, right? So of course I'm gonna address Platonism. I'm not clear like even if I let you go through with like
yeah, I'm explaining the benefits of I'm explaining the benefits of the Platonism thing. I'm explaining it.
Wait, by benefits you mean like theoretical utility?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we would say theoretical utility, but I mean, you know, I'm not like I'm a Christian, right? So I hold to what Plato would call it the demiurge, but you know, we would hold to like the mind of God, right? So it's the mind of God.
But what
would be like,
Platonism has?
It helps with groups, like so essentially.
Which isn't like theoretical utility, like that's not any like theoretical virtue. You're saying like it helps
so,
with reality?
Yeah, like let's say you have a piece of paper and you put dots all over the paper, the dots everywhere. Then how do you make sure you put a circle? Okay, I put a circle around this group of dots is a human. I put a circle around this. Okay, this group of dots is a dog. Like by what standard are you grouping the diversity of particulars that are around us?
I don't
like
know
what?
Means the diversity of particulars.
So basically, the other view of the true nature of being is that everything is just a bunch of teeny tiny parts, right? So this is the Adam's view, and they call these parts philosophical.
Right? Cash out the phrase. I don't know what it means.
So, yeah. So basically, it's a bunch of teeny tiny parts, and if you have just a bunch of parts, the question, like let's say you have a bunch of dots on a page, is by what metric or standard do you categorize these thoughts? Like where do you begin and end? Like what is you? Like let's say if you're sitting on a chair, how is it that a chair isn't you and you are not the chair? Like what's the demarcation and by what standard?
The standard is the semantics. Like the taxonomy of human,
semantics?
Yeah, the taxonomy of human is just like under like a semantical norm, right? What we mean by human is like X, Y, Z set of conditions that are necessary and sufficient insofar as it qualifies as human. There's no metaphysical explanation for taxonomy. Taxonomy is all linguistic. Like of course we build our semantics around like synthetics of the world, right? So we have like this linguistic synthesis, but that's not really that has nothing to do with like this metaphysical view of mereology or one of the many or anything about particularism or anything of like discrete particulars or Platonism.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, it needs to be real. It can't just be a part of language. Right? It can't just be this is just language. And
no, why? Wait, why does that not? Why can't it just be merely a part of language? Like when I say someone is a bachelor, you don't think bachelor qualifying as unmarried man is not merely linguistic and has like some metaphysical, like I don't know what you're talking about. Like there's some metaphysical conditions behind the evaluation of someone as a bachelor or anything of any taxonomy. Like what makes something as a dog is like some set of metaphysical facts. Because humans, even if that were true, in the sense of which humans label something as a dog, isn't in consideration of metaphysical facts. So even if it were true, which of course I would grant, and I would have zero reason to suspect that that what qualifies as a dog is like some metaphysical set of facts, which just would be like some weird semantic realist view. Of course, like humans don't use it, and of course that's coherent given like the social norm.
Well, I mean, it's a token.
It's very clear that the sciences don't appeal to metaphysics. Like when a biologist like makes a criterion for which something evaluates a dog, they don't look at the metaphysical, like they don't consider metaphysical semantics. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm saying that it's wrong for them not to consider the metaphysical semantics or I know semantics, but just the metaphysics.
Yeah, but when you say that it's wrong, you're making like this like more realist claim, right? Like well, not moral, maybe just like some form of normative realism, or just like mind independent norms. And of course, I'm not convinced of that. Like I don't know what it means to say that there's mind independent definitions.
I mean, so with regards to the Bachelor, you brought the Bachelor. So the Bachelor is a token that references an ontological reality. Like it references something that is actual, that is the case. So it's a token that references that which is the case.
What does this have to do with? I don't know that. what that's even like what that related to at all. Like, do you have like I'm not clear. What's your reason to like believe Platonism? Like, presumably, in my view, there's like no theoretical utility, and it just comes with like theoretical vices of like ontological inflation, right? And this like metaphysically queer view when you say that existence is a predicate, or like existence can exist. I don't even know what that means. Like, you quantify, because first I don't take existence as a predicate, and then when you say like exists, when I say X exists, I'm just like, well, I'm a deflationist, so that just namely means whenever I express a proposition like X is true, that's just like redundant and just like it just deflates to saying X. Right? When I say John has a dog is true, it's just like compatible or tantamount to saying John has a dog. But when you say existence exists, and by existence you mean the state of existence or the state of existing, I don't even know what that means. Right? That's like some metaphysically queer Platonism. That's not, because even a Platonist like doesn't have, like, most Platonists don't have a view that there's a Platonic entity of existence insofar as itself. I don't even know what that means. But like, you're also saying that you believe in Platonism, but you're not a Platonist, or you have like some weak or maybe some strong credence towards Platonism. And I don't see why that is. But then you also like try to give me an explanation. But an explanation for what, I don't know, when you say you're explaining, presumably you're saying you're explaining like epistemic reasons or ethical reasons concerning your motivation for like Platonism, especially this robust model. And instead of like informing me as to like the particular like theoretical virtues or epistemic virtues, you're just like giving me this weird, no offense, rant. And I'm just interested in maybe you have a deductive argument in light of the proposition. Platonism is true. If not, I'm just like, I don't know why. I don't know where the dialogue would go from there if you don't have like an argument for the proposition.
So argument. Yeah. So, all right. So basically, so we're talking about like being, what is being. And when you brought up like a bachelor, you saying, well, a bachelor is just like, just this kind of part of language or something like that. But I think it's not just part of language; it's a token that references a real reality, like a real metaphysical reality. References like ontology, that which is the case, like the person is really not married, like he's actually not married. So it's a word that's referencing an ontological reality.
Yeah, the description is true. It may be true that John is a bachelor, or bachelor means a married man, and that proposition might be true. But to say bachelor means unmarried man doesn't seem coherent to say that's like I'm a realist about that expression. Because presumably when we cash out analytic phrases, those aren't actually like they're cash outs, they're not propositions. But if you're you're like a cognitivist about definitions, then of course I'm gonna like want an argument for the view.
Okay, so all right, let's see what this we were on. Second, I missed something.
Oh, Billy, by the way, did you talk to Matt Slick yesterday or no? I don't think Billy's online.
Yeah, it's on auto mute, so everybody is muted. Yeah, okay, so we were going, okay, so being is not void of attributes, or be nothing. So being is on assumption. So being is on assumption, being is not void of attributes, or be nothing. So I mean, being could be a mind or could not be a mind. Like, do you agree with that? Like, 'cause it's like it could be that the noumena is like the mind of God. You know how Kant talk about the phenomenon of the noumena?
Yeah, I don't believe in that
Could be
routine distinction.
Why not?
Oh, well, first, I'm a direct realist.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm not
So
convinced
how-
that there's actually a distinction between phenomena and noumena, because I believe we directly perceive the external world. Now, if you're just saying like our perspectival access to the external world is limited, it's not the case we exhaust the external world given our perception, then maybe that's true. But I wouldn't say that we don't perceive the external world. I don't think there's a distinction between what we see and the external world.
Do other minds exist?
Well, yeah, I hold the view. Yeah.
Sorry, it was breaking up.
No, I said yeah, I hold the view that my other minds exist.
Okay, so that would just be like a base level axiom.
No, it's not an axiom.
All right, then what is it?
I have like warrant for the belief. Again, I take it an axiom. It's just like a constitutive of a framework, right? We talk about logical axioms or Euclidean axioms or mathematical axioms or any axioms of the sort. I don't think it axioms are actually propositions. I think axioms, if you even treat an axiom as a proposition, an axiom is just true in light of the system that defines it true, right? Because they're just like norms, like pedagogical norms. Like other minds exist, I have reason to suspect. Like I'm just blindly positing that to be true.
But why would you? Yeah, well, okay. I mean, I would view the axiom as that which supports the system, not as axioms that which is within the system.
Supports?
But,
well, yeah, I don't know what the distinction there is. I'm not saying the axiom is like equivalent, like a tautology that's ontological to the system. It's a constitutive that constitutes the overall system, right? Like it's not like, of course, like transitivity isn't the equivalent of logic. But of course, like a set of logical axioms, like these like material operators or transitivity or laws of logic or quantifiers, stuff of the sort, those are gonna be like axioms, right? And the set of axioms constitutes the system, right? Like the set of axioms is gonna be like equivalent to the system. Like I believe minds exist as a proposition, not an axiom. It's like an expression of my belief state. Now, the actual, independent of my belief, the actual proposition other minds exist, of course, that is also a proposition, right? Both are. One is like a proposition, like a dogmatic proposition about my like belief state, and the other is like a proposition about reality, or so the external world. So, yeah, I have reason to believe other minds exist.
So, like, what reason?
Oh well, I would just suspect that minds have are conscious, and I understand consciousness as maybe something like reaction to stimuli, given facts acquainted to their like perception and what they have access to perspectively, right? So I would expect a rock not to like I don't do anything. Like a human can communicate, and they're disposed to having certain like phonological expressions, environments, has to communicate with their surrounding. Or like when another human's feeling pain, they scream, right, given like some quality sensation. Those are like facts I would expect from a mind to have like strong evidence that exists. Like presumably, like mind beliefs, and when an agent expresses they have a belief, Now, contextually speaking, with a set of their environments, like I wouldn't know why I would expect a non-mind to express like when I ask, do you believe in God, and they say yes, I maintain the belief God exists. Presumably, a mind is like engaging conversation. Like I don't.
All right, so you're a direct realist. So let's say you have a friend who's colorblind, and another friend has a different type of colorblindness. So one sees things as gray. So if you have an apple on the table, you see it as red. He sees it as gray. Another friend sees it as green because he has a different type of colorblindness. So due to direct realism, all three of you would be correct. Or...
Yeah, subjective facts, of course, are just true in virtue of the subject. Like there's certain predicates that are not objective of the world, namely like those of color.
So let's say you go through some type of like explosion or something, I don't know, that makes you colorblind. So the first day you come into the room, you see a red apple, and then the second day you come in and you see a gray apple. So the apple transformed.
Wait, can you repeat that?
So let's say you go and you see a red apple the first day, and then you get into some type of like explosion, and then it makes it that you're colorblind. So the next day you come into the room, and now you see a gray apple. So that means the apple transformed. It went from red to gray.
Yeah, I mean, those are still like, I take it color is a subjective quality of perception, right? It's not like linear perception. I don't think it like corresponds with, like I don't think there's like mind-independent instantiated predicates, unless you're talking about like some analytic, like some definition. Like look, like that's like color is subjective. Just like me right now, if I eat as much gushers as I can, right, in 10 years, then 10 years later maybe, gushers might taste disgusting to me. Now taste is going to be a feature of my perception, right? Because it's like a sensory faculty, and there's not going to be like, yeah, I might still be like experiencing an external gusher, my tongue, like there's like a mind-independent gusher in my mouth, and I can like taste it, but there's not like mind-independent taste. Like a gusher is still good. 10 years later, it's not like I evolved in such a way with my faculties that become errored, in which like now I'm wrongly, inputting the sensory interpretation by like my cognition that's like now bad in taste. Like, I don't take it that there's such thing as like mind-independent taste or mind-independent color.
Mind-independent taste. I mean, it's independent of creaturely minds. Like your mind, my mind, the animal's minds, the
Wait, so you think you take the proposition chocolate tastes good is true independent of any particular agent's experience, the consumption of chocolate? Like that doesn't make any sense. Like if the world's, like if someone's eating hot Cheetos and they're saying, "Oh my god, it's super spicy," right? Like a white girl, and then you have like a world champion like hot wings eater, and they eat like a bag of hot Cheetos, and they're like, "That's like baby shit," right? That's like that's shit. Like there's not like mind-independent spiciness. Like this is in fact super spicy. Like the proposition the white girl said that this is super spicy. I don't know what it means to say like there's a mind-independent fact about how spicy something is, and that even though like it's true for the world champion hot eater that it is super spicy, like that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I mean, I hold that there's always a divine mind. So even if there are any creaturely minds, the divine mind is always actual. But yeah, I guess here's the thing. So let's say you look at the red apple, but you don't see the ultraviolet spectrum. So does that mean that there is no ultraviolet spectrum of red or apple color?
What?
See, let's say you look at the apple, right, and you don't see the ultraviolet spectrum. So there's a whole host of colors that are like too bright or too dark for you to see. So does that mean that those colors don't exist for the apple? Like the ultraviolet spectrum of the apple doesn't exist because you don't see it. I don't see it.
Well, again, I don't think colors are mind-independent. That's like saying, do you see electrons? If you don't see electrons and you're a direct realist, and that which is featured in your perception is a property of like the external world directly, and you don't perceive electrons, then there is no electrons. Like that, like there's like some confusion going on there, right? Just in the same sense too, when you say like doesn't think like gushers taste good, and another person does, that like taste or like the faculty of taste is a property of perception, and it's just a case that they have disagreement between taste and having direct like perception, and like direct realism is false because no agent can misperceive. Like you understand like those things aren't like direct realism talks about, like directly perceiving the external world, and I don't take it that things like color and taste are actually features of the external world. They're like
hello?
Hello? Yeah, my mic.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was saying, like, color and light, color and taste aren't features of the external world. They're like features of qualia. Like, there's no objective color, right? It's just light bouncing off objects. Color isn't a property of the world. It's like a property of mental representation.
Yeah.
Just like taste is like a property of mental representation. Like how I represent the taste of like an apple. There's not like mind-independent good taste of an apple. That's just like a subjective qualia. Or maybe saying subjective qualia is like redundant. It's just like a qualia experience.
Oh, can you repeat the last thing you said?
That it's just like a quality experience, and that light isn't a feature. I mean, color is not a feature of the like external world. It's a feature of mental representation, and that we directly perceive the external world. And then we have like different interpretations, like subjective interpretations of things, like taste and color. That there isn't actually like physical color. There's just light bouncing off objects, and your mental faculties interpret specific colors, just like specific taste. There's not like mind-independent apple tastes good, or like mind-independent particular tastes of objects. Like there's a fact that apples taste good or gushers taste good.
Okay. So I mean, how would we know? Like, how would we know that we're directly perceiving like that which is the case? Like, how would we know that?
Oh, well, again, it's just like first there's going to be theoretical utility in the view, independent of like justification. It's going to be motivating simpliciter, right? Like when we consider indirect realism versus direct realism, indirect realism allows for a range of skeptical scenarios, right? And indirect realism was like limit a range of skeptical scenarios, right? Now just on the theoretical front, when we consider a more virtuous theory, of course the eliminating of like epistemic indeterminacy is already going to be like a virtue in light of like the theory of direct realism. But also then, like in the world in which we're not directly perceiving the external world, and it can be the case we're like systematically deceived, well then it's just going to like be vicious given it doesn't have like the virtue of something like predictive scope, right? And it's not clear in the world in which we don't directly observe the external world what we might perceive, and we can't generate predictions about natural regularity when it's easily equally as plausible that the next instance of my perception can I see radically different changes of natural regularity than I have in the past, right? And given that I just make just these mundane predictions, like if I jump like gravity, like I'll get pulled to the center of the earth, like predictions like this that I can predict of the external world are going to be like motivating for like things like direct realism.
Okay, so basically, because one has a consistency of past experiences, like therefore,
In the world in which I perceive the external world directly, I would expect if I jump, gravity would pull me down. In the world in which I'm not directly perceiving, it's equally as possible or probable that seemingly that I would jump and start floating like Superman or something, or like that minion from the one movie, given my perception, as I would if I jumped and got pulled to like the center of the earth. Now, direct realism would predict that we'd get pulled by gravity, and in the world in which I don't directly like perceive the external world, it would be equally as plausible as to say I'll float and then I would get pulled down. So it's not going to generate prediction, and prediction's evidence in light of a theory. Just given the fact that direct realism is actually going to have predictive scope, it's actually almost like infinite plausible, given that it can generate predictions. So it's just like the view of like direct realism on like a probability front is just not likely.
Well, that's just granting. It's just granting that you perceive the actual state of affairs because you're starting off with I can directly observe that which is the case, and then you go to all right, I'm observing balls fall off the table, and then when I do it again, the ball falls off the table, do it again, the ball falls off the table. But that's starting with you start with okay, I can perceive the actual state of affairs. That's an actual ball is actually falling off the table, and then you repeat the experiment numerous times, and then you conclude my senses perceive that which is actual, but the experiment itself is not testing the actuality of the senses. It's testing the consistency of like the simulation. So like, okay, well, I'm in the simulation. The same thing keeps happening over and over and over again. But just because there's
in a simulation, there's not going to be predictive power, or like any. No, I don't want to say predictive power. There's just not going to be a predictive scope. Like it's not going to generate prediction. Like why would I see it more like plausible to say that if I jumped, I would float than I would if I jumped and I got pulled down. Now, if I'm seeing the external world, right, where there are facts about physics that I have direct external access to, namely like the Earth is like a celestial body with significant mass that warps space-time, in which there's going to be like some gravitational field that would have some certain like a degree of like gravitational pull that if I jumped, I'd get pulled back down. Now, in the world in which I misperceive, there's no reason to suspect that the next second that I wouldn't perceive like the world in which I start flying if I jumped. Now, in the world in which I'm perceiving the world directly, if I jumped, I would expect that I would get pulled down because it's my perception of the facts of the external world, or the seemingly facts of the external world. And if there's more evidence for the theory, then it's just going to be like the more plausible theory.
More plausible theory. Well, yeah, I think, like let's say if there is a consistent simulation, like they programmed it to be consistent, and so then when we're walking around in that world, we push balls off table, it falls down, you jump, you go back down. You look at video games can be.
But now you're stipulating more that there is the world in which well, first it's not clear why why would we expect that in the world in which it is like supposed to be simulated accurately that like I wouldn't there would still be weaker predictions. Like it's still going to be possible that the simulation at some certain point fails or has an error, or there's going to be like some shortage of power at some instance, right? And those possibilities at any given point in time is going to decrease the like probability of the next predictive event than in the actual world, right? So if in the world in which I jump and I get pulled down by gravity, in the world in which I'm in a like very accurate simulation, well, I don't see what it's going to be like. There's always a possibility of which the simulation just reaches an error, and when I jump, I like see like I don't know some lab I'm in that or something. Now, even granted, if you say that's very implausible, right? Let's say it's like super plausible in the real world hypothesis, that's not even a possibility, right? So now it's like all things considered, it's going to be a more plausible theory.
Elon Musk is making those brain chips. Right? You stick a chip on someone's brain and they can control the computer. Now, if we're like, oh, what if someone made even more advanced stuff than that way in the past before humans even like came to the planet? And then what if like before you left your mother's womb, an alien went and attached one of these brain chips to your brain, and that brain has been feeding you a consistent false experience the entire time, and in actuality you're in this alien's spaceship.
But that's like the same response that I just made like prior would be made in this scenario too. In the world in which I have a chip in my brain, which is stimulating a sense of like false like sensation. Well, first I would just find, like again I would just another thing I didn't even like say is like I would just be dubious to whether that's possible, that you can just be stimulated like an entire set of false scenarios or like states of affairs. Like I find that dubious, but even if that's possible, granted again in the world in which the possibility is like precluded, namely the world in which the hypothesis of which I'm perceiving the world directly, the external world directly, it's just going to eliminate that possibility. So it's no like all things considered, it's more plausible in every scenario. Because there's still the scenario in which the chip fails at some given instance, and in the world in which I perceive the world directly, that's not a possibility. So it's just going to be like every prediction made in the world in which I'm perceiving the world directly is going to have like stronger predictive power, right? It's going to have like the predictive power over the world in which I'm in a like skeptical scenario.
All that's being questioned is the ability of, I guess, like a being to construct a consistent simulation, right? Like if given that the being was sufficiently powerful, sufficiently intelligent, with sufficient time or whatever it takes, like they could construct a simulation that could be consistent for at least 120 years.
Look, so I don't think maybe you're just not getting it. So look, let's consider two scenarios, and the two scenarios are me observing like a red apple. In one scenario, there's a possibility of which I'm in a simulation, and the other, it's like a state of affairs in which it's stipulated it's the external world. Now, considering the two scenarios, in the first world, in which it's a skeptical, or like I have like like a chip in my brain, in that scenario, when I perceive the apple, you agree it's possible that the chip malfunctions, and I start seeing other things, or I perceive like a different like event or something like that, right?
Are you saying that it could be possible? What if
like it's possible the chip turns off and I start seeing a lab, right?
Okay, well, how about this? Like, could you play like a video game? Like, let's say you play Halo.
No, yeah, look,
like,
you just answer. You agree that it's like yes, you would. The possibility of there being like the chip failure, right? Yeah, that's possible.
Is it possible?
Yeah, I mean, like it should. Yeah, of course, it's logically possible. So
what if it's not possible?
But no, I mean, of course, it's going to be possible. Like logically speaking.
How do you know it's possible?
How's it
How
possible?
do you know it's possible for the?
Yeah, it's just like analytically true. You understand, like you understand. There's a difference between modal scopes, right? When you make a claim something's logically possible, that's just like a weak elite claim, right? And all it means for something to be logically possible is that it's not inconsistent with like the laws of logic, or namely any law, principle, or axiom of logic. more precisely, right? But of course, like there's not gonna be like rejecting any of the three laws of logic would just entail contradiction. Like any like law of logic that's broken, it's just equivalent of like it's just equivalency to contradiction, right? Where A equals A is identity, and if that's broken, then A can equal not A, which is just a clear contradiction. Law of non-contradiction, which just states that the state of affairs P not P cannot obtain, and if there's a world where there's P not P obtaining, then that's just like another contradiction, right? And then the world in which like excluded middle, which to be clear is different from like bialiens, but when it states like there's no middle between true and false, right? Like it can't, like there isn't the conjunction between the two. And of course when you deny that, it just means like all three scenarios just entail contradiction. So like when you say like possible that the chip malfunctions, of course that's logically possible. There's no contradiction in a technological chip implemented in your brain malfunctioning. Because of course like logical contradictions aren't like synthetic falsehoods. Like when I say like sorry.
Okay, go ahead. Okay, saying there's no logical contradiction with a chip possibly failing and with like a chip failing within the brain, and then well then we can also say like there's no logical contradiction between having like this unfailing chip in your brain or mind, like this chip that never fails.
Yeah, so you agree it's logically possible that the chip could fail.
That's logically possible, but both of those would be
both logically possible. Yeah, so now when we consider the logical possibility in the one scenario in which it can case in which the chip fails, in which you can misperceive the state of affairs that you're like whatever environmental facts you're in which you misperceive. Now, considering the two worlds, when we consider the perception of seeing a red apple versus seeing a red apple in which there's no chip in your brain and you're directly perceiving the world. Now, given the possibility of there being a chip that malfunctions, simpliciter, right? Like cerebus paribus, considered like comparatively or like juxtaposed to the world in which there's not a chip in your brain. When we consider those two states of affairs, the world in which it doesn't have the possibility of a chip in your brain when you perceive, and when it predicts you perceiving an apple and you do perceive an apple versus the world in which it's possible you have a chip in your brain and you can misperceive and you don't misperceive and see an apple. It's still you understand how it's going to still be more plausible. It's actually going to be necessarily more plausible in the scenario in which you directly perceive the external world because there is no alternate possibility. So in the world in which it's predicted an apple and you have direct vertical perception, the probability is 100%. And even in the world in which, let's say, like the probability of the chip malfunctioning is like infinitely small, right? Infinitesimal, it just like increases, like it's just infinitely like becoming less, probable. It's still going to be like an infinitely small probability that's errored, as opposed to a scenario in which it's not possible, right? Where the world where misperception is not possible. So when you make that prediction, it's going to necessarily be more plausible the theory that you directly perceive the external world.
I don't get the whole logical. I mean, I guess I didn't quite understand. Like, why would logical possibility like matter?
When we consider like probability, of course, like logical possibility is going to be a feature in what's like probable. Like when we you understand probability deals with the likelihood of a logical possible world, right? So when we talk about like probability, of course, we're going to talk about possible worlds. When we consider alternate possible worlds comparatively to the world in which you directly perceive the external world, it's going to have like the static probability, like virtue over all others, right? Like the predictive power is going to be like the strongest compared to all alternatives.
So what was the thing that you said again, like your response you gave?
Yeah, so in the world in which there is the possibility of there being a misperception given the failure of the chip, even if very implausible, it's still a possibility that's going to be a feature of that state of affairs. In the world in which there isn't that possibility in which you directly perceive the external world, of course the predictive power, the virtue of predictive power in the latter scenario is just going to be motivating given when we like consider the two state of affairs like cerebus paribus. The feature of the the possibility of error is a feature in the latter scenario in which it's ultimately going to be like probability, like the probability will always be lends credence towards the view of which direct realism is the case, because there's not going to be the possibility of you misperceiving. So it's going to be more strongly predicted in the world in which you directly perceive that certain states of affairs predictively will arise, because there isn't the possibility of misperceiving. So when I jump and I predict, I'll get pulled down. In the world in which it's possible, I start flying, right? Even if that's like a very new possibility, like 0.00000000001%, it's still going to be a feature that the direct realists wouldn't exhibit in their like hypothesis, right? This like possibility of error. So it's just going to be more expected necessarily that it's gonna like be it's gonna have the stronger predictive power because there's no possibility of error, right? It'll necessarily predict the outcome. We're not in the lab in the prior scenario. It's just going to be like that one logical possibility in which it doesn't feature, even if it's small, it's still possible. So it's going to be less predicted, given that there's a possibility of error. So the likelihood isn't going to be guaranteed. In the direct realist case, the predictive power is guaranteed. In the scenario in which like you misperceive, of course there's a possibility of misperception. So of course there's going to be like less probability because it's possible that you misperceive. So it's just less likely. Right? It's not 100% you're going to perceive the predicted world because of course the possibility of you misperceiving is there. So it can't be 100%. In the direct realist case, for all predictions, the predictive power is going to be like 100%.
Yeah. I mean, to go and say like, okay, in the world in which the chip never fails, it would be like better to believe, like it's like okay that the chip could fail, or like it's like, so it's better to believe that you observe that, which is the case in the world in which the chip doesn't fail, because it'd be more likely that in a world in which you are, because if you're in the world in which the chip fails, if you're in the world in which the chip, there would be a possibility of failing. The world in which the chip doesn't fail, the world in which the chip doesn't fail, one should still believe that they're observing the actual state of affairs, because it would be
more
possible or more probable that they're in the actual state of affairs because what they're observing is consistent. Like they observe a consistent pattern in the past. Something like that. I mean, everything is all like probabilities. It's all like, well, this could be the case. That could be the case. This could be the case. Like, it's all shrouded in ultimate mystery. True nature.
I don't know if that's even saying. I don't know. That doesn't. Is that supposed to be like an objection to the probability? It doesn't seem like that has any weight. What you just said that it's shrouded in.
I mean, do you believe? Well, it's like, in the world in which the chip doesn't fail, you just say it's better to believe that you're in the actual world because the actual world would have a consistency of experience, whereas in a chip world there could be a likelihood of it failing. But that's the world in which the chip never fails.
Yeah, even in the world in which the chip doesn't fail, it would still be more expected on the world in which we directly perceive the external world that event would obtain. There's no possibility of misperception, so the prediction would necessarily be generated. Right, the predictive expression is guaranteed under that hypothesis. That would ensure that outcome obtaining. And in the world in which it's possible we misperceive, then it's possible that we actually do go floating when we jump. And even if it were obtained, it would just be expected.
I mean, even if we were to go floating when we jump, that wouldn't prove that you're not in the actual state of affairs. That could just prove that in the actual state of affairs, there's some new like law or development in which you just weren't previously acquainted with.
What? Sorry.
So even if you were to, let's say you were to jump and you were to start floating or flying, that wouldn't demonstrate that you're not in the actual state of affairs, that you're not in the real world. Like, I wouldn't demonstrate that. That would just demonstrate that maybe there's some new like law, like maybe some new trick to gravity that we just haven't discovered yet, and you happen to make a discovery of how to start floating after you jump. Right? Could just be a new discovery.
So you're just saying that there might be some phenomenal explanation that for why you're like perceiving that scenario that isn't like a misperception? Is that what you're trying to get at?
You can't point to anything to show that you're not in the actual state of affairs. You can't in the non-God worldview. And the non-God worldview, there's nothing you can point to show that you're not in the actual state of affairs. And in the non-God worldview, there's nothing you can point to show that you're not in the simulation. Right? No matter what you point to. Like, even if you look into the sky and you see fire, like letters being written in the sky and fire, right? And you look at that, you wouldn't be justified in saying, oh, I see letters fire in the sky. I guess this is all a simulation. Even if you see like lag spikes, you see people like glitching backwards or
predicted most likely. Like those wouldn't be expected under the hypothesis.
Well, what is the grounds of possibility and impossibility in the non-God worldview?
But if you're talking about logical modal scope, the grounds of possibility and impossibility are the same for the theist. It's just whether or not consistent with the laws of logic.
That's not the same.
Wait, so yeah, what modal scope are you talking about when you say something's logically possible? I mean, sorry, when you say something, you're talking about possibility here. What modal scope are you like referring to? Are you talking about logical possibility? Because the grounds of something's logically possible is just if it's consistent with logic. It has nothing to do with God.
So like logical possibilities, one modal scope. Like what other modal scopes are there?
Like non-logical, which deals with like physical law. Like if it's physically possible, like me jumping off the floor and flying like isn't physically possible. It's logically possible.
What about like ontology? Is there ontological scope?
No, because there's not such thing as laws of ontology. You can just say whatever for something to exist, like the possibility something exists. That's just like logical possibility.
Yeah, but logical possibility. You want to focus on what like logical possibility is just like it's like hypotheticals. You want to focus on what is the case,
Sure,
like being.
Yeah, hypothetical. What does that matter?
Yeah, being.
Wait, I don't understand. What's the relevance of it being hypothetical?
Yeah. Also, hello, Naive. Good to see you.
Hello.
Yep. But yeah, I mean like logical. Yeah, if it's just like a logical possibility, then it's just we're saying okay, like we come up with a system and it's self-consistent within itself. You know, like self-consistent system.
Well, I mean, that's again, I see that. Sorry, again, I see that as like trivial because I just take it that all systems are going to be like consistent with themselves. I don't know what I mean for a system to be inconsistent with itself. That just sounds like gibberish.
But yeah, I mean, I'd mainly look for things that are actual. Like I wouldn't try to look for logical things that are like logically possible. So okay, well, what is the case?
Yeah, but the only way we can come to whether something is the case is if we consider the array of logical possibilities, and then we just like rule out the range of possibilities with like evidence. That's how we understand that some logical possibilities are less plausible or probable. Sorry. And when we understand that some are less possible, then they're just going to be less. They're going to be more and more weakly considered, right? Like if something's very very improbable, then it's just like not going to be like really strongly considered in the set of actual things. Like if in the possible world in which because I sneeze they honor me mayor and I win the lottery and become Superman, that's a logical possibility. And of course that's not probable. And given that like improbability, we're just going to rule that out from the like set of actual worlds.
I mean, the evidence that one uses to rule out like one of the logically possible worlds, like it's I don't know, it's kind of like self-refuting, or it doesn't work. Because it's okay if I'm you say okay, well, you're inside the simulation, you're inside the simulation with a brain chip, and the chip never fails, so you're just gonna assume that you're in the real world. So well, this is
wait, you understand an assumption? Wait, I think you're just confused about like you understand how an assumption would work, right? And how evidence is quite literally what would like be like evidence for something wouldn't be like believing something on the basis of evidence isn't an assumption, because evidence is that which aims towards truth. So if a hypothesis has more stronger evidence compared to other hypotheses, then it's just gonna be more strongly considered true or actual.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go and I guess chat on like the Bible or more Christian topics and stuff. So I guess less philosophical things. Okay. But I'd be glad to. Yeah, if you want, you can chat on the Bible or God and more things like that. So I'm gonna go flip the Bible.
All right, have a good one.